Let's talk about The Voice. Dean Parkin was in the studio earlier. Lovely man, charming. We had a good chat. Obviously, different points of view on The Voice. The head of the Australian Electoral Commission has sparked confusion, though, after suggesting, and this was a big story during the week, it was on Ben Fordham had a terrific piece on it on 2GB. And Ray Hadley, this is this whole question about whether ticks and crosses will be counted as yes or no's. Now, this is really, really disturbing stuff because, yes, of course, you can fill in yes, the word Y-E-S, or the word N-O at the bottom of your referendum paper, and that will count as a yes or no. But the question of whether ticks or crosses counts, apparently, according to the Electoral Commission, if you put a tick, that counts as a yes, but if you put a cross, that's an informal vote, so your vote is not counted, James.
Well, this is really disturbing for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that the AEC then, after all of this controversy developed, went out and basically tried to put out a smackdown on those who were claiming what in fact was true about what they were saying about ticks versus crosses against Peter Dutton, which then suggests to me that what's happening here is the AEC is appearing to at least be politicized here, which is really dangerous in a referendum that's going to be as contentious and I suspect as close as this one is going to be. You know, everybody knows that a tick means yes and a cross means no, and that's a widely accepted thing. Now, obviously, people should simply write yes or no on their ballot paper in the space provided. But if people go one way or the other, and the thing, is close, and there is a perception that one side or the other was not fairly heard by the AEC. It is more than that, though. It is more than because we've seen so much from the AEC. We saw the Craig Kelly case recently, The legitimacy of this referendum, and in fact the legitimacy of the country, depends on the AEC being scrupulous about not appearing to be biased one way or the other. Just look at the United States. Just look at what has happened there, where various electoral offices in different states have appeared to be swaying one way or the other, where judges sway things one way or the other. We do not want that in Australia.
But we've already seen that. There was a great deal of criticism of the AEC earlier this year because they ran a series of ads which they said it was a campaign to lift Indigenous representation on the electoral roll, but those ads look very much like yes ads.
Yes.
They ran another campaign which again seemed to borrow similar phrases, similar imagery to the yes camp. So they've already come under criticism. You think they would be on high alert to seem completely fair down the line, and the way they double down on criticism of this ticks and crosses thing is quite disturbing, because I thought this was such an enormous misstep that they would clarify and say no, either both are valid or both are invalid. You can't have both. You can't have both. You can't have say a tick is okay, but a cross is not acceptable as a no vote and is invalid. But they say there's a fairness provision.
No, but there's a solution to this here, which is that when Parliament resumes next week or in 2 weeks, Peter Dutton should go and put to the Parliament a bill amending the referendum machinery bill to simply say both are acceptable. That's the solution to it, and I'm hoping that they do that.
Even easier, all you need to do on the ballot is have two boxes, one for yes, one for no, and you can tick or cross, whichever the one you like. So that is a simple way, because we're talking, even if it's 1% of the vote, that could sway a referendum. That could see one state go from the no camp to the yes camp. You cannot have any question about the integrity of this referendum. We're talking about our constitution here. This is more important than a federal or a state election. There cannot be any confusion. I would say we already have very much not a level playing field. We've got every big corporate backing the yes camp. They've got an enormous war chest of money. We've got every sporting organisation, every celebrity activist class pushing the yes camp, and then to have the AEC seemingly display bias is unacceptable.
Rita, that so much of this corporate money that is going into the yes camp. Remember, Australia is a highly regulated economy, right? And so many businesses, so many big ASX 100 companies live in highly regulated environments. Not just airlines, but also mining companies, manufacturing, agriculture. Everybody has to have access to the government, to their minister, And they're doing this partially, I think, simply because it's a stitch-up that the government knows that they can hold that sort of perception of, well, nice business he got. There'd be a shame if a ruling was to go against it.
Well, you look at what's happened with Qantas and Qatar Airways. You could see why people would come to that conclusion. That is a decision, I think. If we're going to have this federal integrity watchdog, that is a decision that needs to come under that sort of scrutiny. Because
well, the reality is that the Albanese government has allowed the perception to be there that they're rigging this election. They've allowed that perception all along. James, as I said, it's more than a perception. You've had crosses have been used in elections going back forever. So the cross is a legitimate thing. In fact, there are many ballot papers where they say you can only fill in the box with a cross. So the crosses are part of the electoral process. We've had any number of graphics, of pamphlets, of leaflets in the last 6 months that have clearly showed symbolically the yes is a tick and a cross is symbolically a no. So for the Albanese government and the bureaucracy, the Canberra bureaucracy, to allow this situation to occur where the results afterwards could be called into question by the public. People go, that was rigged, I filled in my ballot paper with an X, and it, whatever it might be. As Rita says, for the government not to go out of its way to make sure this is a fair vote is disgraceful. And I'm sorry, it's more than the perception. It is clear that the Albanese government is pulling every possible trick in the book in order to try and get the result it wants in this referendum, and that, to me, is an absolute disgrace. Let's hear where someone who doesn't have any ambiguity about yes and no, have a listen to this elder Indigenous woman.
I'd like to say now, say no to the voice, please. Respect the elders' wishes and say no. No to the voice is what we want. The government wants you to say yes, but say no, please.
There are so many instances of Indigenous people who are against the voice. To me, it is reprehensible that White Australia is telling those people, yet again, White Australia being paternalistic and saying, no, we know what's best for you.
Oh, no. So don't forget Albo's poll of 300 Indigenous activist types who apparently all of them back. Well, it's not just being against. You speak to so many people who are actually in remote communities who are travelling the country, and they say, there's just very little awareness in these communities of the voice and what it will do. The fact that there's going to be a referendum. So this is something that is being pushed by the inner city activist class, no doubt about that. We know the Uluru Statement from the Heart. I think our greatest historian described it best. It's a militant statement.
Of course
Even if you want to just read the cover page, the flowery cover page, there's a bit of militancy in that as well.